Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Hope everyone is doing alright. My dog caught me. Bleeding. Hope everyone is doing okay. Let me check my volume. Always check your volume. This one should not take long. So if I'm in and out, that's probably why. Inspector General Horowitz has been in congressional testimony for the last, Monday and Tuesday. This is a day or two old. Monday, he was in the Senate. Tuesday, he was in the House. Now, in the House Judiciary. Bombshells. Absolute bombshells. So the wild part about this is Horowitz wrote this 568-page report. In this report, they tried to make it as if there was nothing to see here, folks. There was nothing written down to indicate that anybody had any idea of bias, while at the same token writing things that are overtly biased. It is an amazing schizophrenic document. It puts you in the mind of Donna Brazile writing all of Hillary Clinton's flaws, all of the stuff that's breaking campaign finance laws by essentially money laundering through these various parties, organizational party apparatus for the states. But it's not illegal. That's what it feels like. It feels like the document should have been something else. This was wrong. But it's one point in the document. He even says this puts this casts doubt over the entirety of the process, meaning over the result of the investigation. I mean, it is an amazing document to read, and you find certain things in this testimony that you don't necessarily see in the document itself. And it's possible that there are certain drafts of the document that might have, let's say, leaned in a different direction than what this draft ended up. The reason I say that is because it sounds schizophrenic. That's all. This is day 2 testimony. Horowitz, zero hedge. We don't want any hedge. Inspector General Horowitz, why can't I say it? Inspector General Michael Horowitz returned to Capitol Hill on Tuesday to answer questions at joint hearing of the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees, one day after he testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee. While Monday's testimony by Horowitz and FBI Director Christopher Wray was certainly eye-opening, congressional investigators uncovered several game-changing bombshells on Tuesday that will reframe the entire discussion. Hat-tipped Paul Sperry for reporting these stunning developments in real time. There were no actual subjects of the Hillary Clinton email investigation, meaning neither Hillary nor any of her top aides, including Uma Abedin and the IT guys who set her up illegal server and then used BleachBit to destroy evidence for which they received immunity, were ever under direct FBI scrutiny. Horowitz found this surprising. And this was Paul Sperry saying it in real time. The IG Horowitz dropped bombshell during Senate testimony. Nobody was listed as a subject of the Clinton email investigation at any point in time, adding, this was surprising. So neither Hillary nor her top aides were formally under investigation by the FBI at any time in 2015 and 2016. That's weird. So when there was supposedly this investigation of Hillary Clinton and Comey said, no, this is a criminal matter, what's true? I mean, he said nobody was actually under investigation. So is it possible that all of this was just theater? None of these people were really under investigation. They were just going along with it as if they were going along with the show. That is somewhat amazing. Let's keep going. But he called it surprising. Let's see. Real Donald Trump is a subject, but Hillary Clinton was never a quote-unquote subject. Outrageous. Shut the Strzok, Page, Comey, McCabe, Lynch, Yates, Glenn, Simpson, Steele, Brennan, Fusion, GPS, Mueller, Special Counsel. Stop the investigation now. Yeah, that's weird. And I'm curious to know. I want more information on this. Nobody was listed as a subject of the email investigation. How are you having an investigation without a subject? That just seems weird. That's so bizarre. That's so bizarre. Alright, there's at least one and possibly more original drafts of the OIG report, which were subsequently redlined by DOJ and higher-ups. Meaning, there's something that we are not seeing. Hurwitz just confirmed that there is indeed an original draft of his 568-page report that was subsequently redlined by the Department of Justice and the FBI higher-ups. It is imperative that Congress obtain this early version before the swamp rats edit, revise for obvious SIA purposes. Think of what's being said. He writes a report. There's certain parts of the report where the higher-ups say, no, we can't have that. We can't have that. And so when they ask them about it, he's like, yeah, there's part of the report that was redlined. So the natural question becomes, what the hell aren't we seeing? And is what we're seeing an explanation for why the report came out to be somewhat schizophrenic? There's no material. I mean, he presented this like he was a lawyer. There is no documented cases of bias. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing. Essentially, nobody wrote it down and said, I am being biased, because that seems to be the only thing that he was willing to jump on. But he lists a ton of stuff that was biased. Some of the conversations that the agents were having were devastating. We're not going to let Trump win. I mean, oh God, man. And then these people turn around and start working on the Trump investigation. Oh. This is the letter they sent. Representative Andy Biggs has sent a formal letter to Horowitz requesting the various drafts of the report, particularly the draft provided to the Department of Justice and the FBI before those agencies made changes to the report. Meaning what we're seeing is not the original draft. It's not the original draft. Alright. Here's another one. Horowitz is no longer convinced that the FBI was collecting all of Strzok and Page's texts, even outside the 5-month window in which the technical glitch after 2016 prevented archiving. Meaning, those damning texts between Strzok and Page, he doesn't believe they have all of them. Meaning, there's communications that were taking place that we don't have. So, the visibility that we have from the standpoint of what these guys were talking about by text message, it already looks bad from what we already have. The question becomes, what's in those texts after the quote-unquote glitch? Pillsbury, again, on the ball. Horowitz now says he's no longer convinced the FBI was collecting all of Strzok and Page's text messages, even outside the 5-month blackout period when it archived none of the text due to a technical glitch. So, a number of other Strzok and Page's responses are likely missing. Horowitz confirmed that he is investigating allegations that FBI officials edited agents' 302 summary reports of investigations or of interviews with witnesses and suspects in the 2016-2017 investigations. Meaning a summary of the investigation he's convinced that the agents have been going through and editing those documents. This is particularly illuminating as it's been long suspected that fired FBI agent Andrew McCabe and agents edit or delete the 302 forms created after the National Security Advisor Michael Flynn's interview. Journalist Sarah Carter, known of late for access to leaks by white hat actors in the intelligence community, sat down with Sean Hannity. Sat down with Sean Hannity in January, where she discussed McCabe's firing and suggested There's indicators right now that McCabe may have asked the FBI agents to actually change their 302s. Let's see. Robert Barnes. I caught Sally Yates' team doing this years ago in Atlanta, taking different pieces of different memorandums of interviews, excising parts that hurt her case, and threading together disparate parts from multiple sources to create misleading single narratives. General Flynn's case. This sounds like it's some kind of summary that's put on a report, but it also sounds like he's saying they've been giving kind of false reports. As opposed to giving one report, they've been, I guess, merging some of these things to give a single narrative, or making it seem as if it's a single narrative, but for the most part changes, I guess, the realness of the report that they would have otherwise gotten. Right here. It may also explain why judge in the Flynn's case ordered special counsel Robert Mueller to turn over any exculpatory evidence to Flynn defense team. Flynn's legal team did not make this request. Instead, Judge Emmett Sullivan issued the order sua sponte, or at his discretion, invoking the Brady Rule, which requires prosecutors to turn over previous unfiled evidence that might have a material impact on the defendant's case. Interestingly, 2 days before the order, Mueller filed a motion for an agreed-upon protective order regarding the use of evidence in the case, including sensitive materials provided to Flynn's lawyers by the Office of the Special Counsel. This may also explain why Mueller has agreed to postpone Flynn's sentencing due to the status of the Special Counsel's investigation. 2 anti-Trump pro-Clinton agents were reported on Friday who were having an extramarital affair were unmasked. The House Judiciary member, Mark Meadows, after Horowitz testified that one of the 2 who interviewed Hillary Clinton was referred for discipline. Horowitz just testified one of the identified other pro-Clinton FBI investigators referred for discipline was one of the agents who interviewed with Hillary Clinton on July 2nd along with Strzok. Essentially, pro-Clinton investigating Hillary Clinton. That's amazing. But keep in mind, these people are living in the world where they assume Hillary Clinton is going to win the election. So understand, to them, this may be perfunctory. She's going to win. She's going to be president. All of this will be under the table. Except she didn't win. Paul Sperry again. Representative Mark Meadows just outed 2 of the unidentified anti-Trump, pro-Hillary FBI investigators referred to punishment by the IG, and both worked for the General Counsel of the FBI, not in counterintelligence as the FBI claimed as an excuse to withhold their names. The FBI lied in order to try to prevent the public from knowing who they are. The unmasked agents are Sally Moyer and Kevin Kleinsman. As reported on Friday, Moyer referred to Clinton as the president. That's presumptive. In a text message with another FBI employee 4 days after interviewing her, according to Thursday's Department of Justice Inspector General report. I'm done interviewing the president. Then type the 302 18-hour day. FBI employee, you interviewed the president? You know, Hillary Rodham Clinton, future president. Trump can't win. Demographics don't line up. America has changed. How wrong you were, sir. Then a different text exchange with one of the other 3 Clinton email investigators, not Strzok or Lisa Page. Another agent wrote, "Screw you, Trump," after the first agent admitted, "You should know that I'm with her." You should know that I'm with her. And again, I kind of want to make this point. These agents were taking actions to make sure that Clinton walked. They're with her. They can't see a world in which she's prosecuted. They didn't even have her as the subject of the case. What are you investigating if you're not investigating whether or not she committed a felony for those emails? Comey said it was a criminal matter. Which part is true? These people are like, I'm with her. Fuck Trump. What? This brings it up to 4 people who was working on the case. Strzok, Page, and now you have 2 others. They're all with her. They're all with her. This case is weird, to say the least. But no bias. There's no bias. There's nothing to see here. There's no bias. On the election day on November 8, 2016, Agent 1 and Agent 5 exchanged the following instant chat. You think Hillary Clinton is going to win, right? You think we should get nails and some bread in case she doesn't? And some boards in case she doesn't? She better win, otherwise I'm going to be walking around with both my guns and likely quitting on the spot. You should know that I'm with her. Oh! Show me the money! Screw you, Trump. Woo! Go, baby, go. Let's give her Virginia. Not my country. You just can't get up and try to appeal to the worst things in humans and fool my country. Just 49% of us. Let's hope it's 49% or less. We'll find out. We found out, dude. We found out. On December 6, 2016 exchange, Agent 5 complained to Agent 1 about being required to be on a call on the day of the presidential inauguration. In the middle of expressing displeasure about this, Agent 5 sent a message to Agent 1 that stated, "Fuck Trump." On February 9, 2017, in the context of an FBI employee receiving a presidential award for public service, Agent 5 messaged, "I think now that Trump is president, I'd refuse it. It would be an insult to even be considered for it." These are the people who are investigating Trump and who are investigating Clinton. But I suppose there's no bias here. No bias at all. Okay. This means that all 4 case agents working for the Hillary Clinton email investigation, the other 2 being Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, were Clinton supporters, and at least 3 harbored animus towards Trump. The report released yesterday by the Inspector General for the Department of Justice referred to these 2 FBI agents, not by their names, but as Agent 1 and Agent 5. The report said that these FBI agents that we identified 2 instant messages exchanges that appeared to combine a discussion of politics with the mid-year investigation. The FBI referred to the Clinton email investigations as mid-year exam, mid-year, or MYE. The same agent who texted, "Screw you, Trump," Agent 5 also wrote, "She better win, otherwise I'm going to be walking around with both my guns and likely quitting on the spot," as well as "Fuck Trump" on December 6. Clinton was interviewed by FBI agent on July 2nd about her use of a private, unsecured email server which housed classified information while she was Secretary of State. According to the IG report, however, the FBI had already decided against recommending prosecution unless Clinton lied or confessed. By the time the Clinton interview on July 2nd, we found that the mid-year agents and prosecutors, along with Comey, had decided that absent a confession or false statements by Clinton, the investigation would be closed without charges. Think about that. They had already made up their mind. She's innocent. As long as she doesn't tell us she's guilty, she's innocent. Or we don't catch her in an obvious lie. Here's the thing. They caught her in multiple lies. I would say look at the Trey Gowdy. I've shown this video multiple times. Trey Gowdy interviewing Comey. And Comey is admitting on multiple occasions that she lied. She lied. She outright lied through her teeth. And Trey Gowdy is asking her, if she lied this much, how on earth are you leaving here without some level of charges? They had already made up their mind. This investigation was a sham. And this sham investigation, now they turn around and investigate Trump. After doing a sham investigation with people harboring such political biases, why do you trust that the investigation of Trump was done fairly and squarely? Do you think the investigation of Clinton was done fairly and squarely? I don't. I don't. Let's see. Shooting down Democrats' mainstream media talking point, Horowitz testified, "We did not find no bias in regards to October 2016 events. Struck choice to make pursuing the Russia espionage case a bigger priority than reopening the Clinton espionage case suggests that was a biased decision." 9 times the Department of Justice Horowitz contradicted FBI Director Cray while they were sitting right next to each other, but nobody seemed to notice. I noticed, and I'm going to be doing that story next. Great clip of Trey Gowdy questioning IG Horowitz on page and Strzok email probe. Good. I will be doing that one next in a separate video also. So multiple bombshells from the investigation. This one went longer than I wanted, but I wanted to go through it. Fascinating what is taking place, but there's no bias. There's no bias. I find that to be an amazing response, to say with a straight face there is no bias, and yet you're contradicting the things that these people are saying, and you're throwing bombshells out while you're doing it. I mean, you have more agents who were essentially biased, more agents who were on the case, and they didn't want to even tell these people's names. The FBI even lied about these people, talking about they were in counterintelligence. That was a lie. They had already made up their mind on what they wanted to do early in July. They needed Hillary Clinton to just say, "I did it," before they were going to do anything. That's amazing. And in an odd way, it almost feels like the IG report is slightly similar. He sticks a knife in by saying, this is what was taking place. And he gives you one biased choice after the next, whether it's Strzok, whether it's Page, whether it's these guys. And he shows them in painstaking detail a ton of bias. And yet he says there was no bias in this. My point in this is, in the same way that Comey is like, nobody wrote down that she was corrupt and she did not give herself in. He's looking for something similar where it's like, I need an explicit case of saying I was biased in this. Otherwise, I'm not going to come up with any information. Despite giving a ton of information showing bias. It's weird the way they're doing this. It's clearly there's bias. The reason why I say it goes beyond just him finding something on her where he can contradict her testimony. Trey Gowdy interviewed Comey where Trey Gowdy got across multiple instances of lying. Comey was not going to prosecute. Comey was not going to prosecute. The question becomes why? Why wouldn't Comey prosecute? And if Comey had already made a decision not to prosecute, and yet all of these people were living in a world where Hillary Clinton was going to win, why would they? I mean, you can see how this would kind of lean in a direction of Clinton, especially with all of these people hating Trump. Not to mention, the Trump haters ends up getting on the Trump case. It's amazing. This is at the bottom. These are the only bombshells that Clinton didn't want to drop. Is anyone surprised that these people did this? Laura Glenny. Some people are, Laura. Baltazar. Thank you very much, Baltazar. These are the only bombshells. These are the only bombs Clinton doesn't want to drop. That's hilarious. And Laura Glenny, is anyone surprised that they did this? You will find some people that are surprised. Yes. You have some people, Democrats. When Bill Clinton said he's talking to Loretta Lynch, that they're like, we're talking about our grandkids. You would have some people to say, why don't you believe that they're not talking about their grandkids? Like, you have some people who are completely useful idiots. Yes. Jamal, but if they could affect anything, what does that bias mean? And doesn't everyone have their own personal biases regarding the FBI? Yes-ish. The question becomes, would those biases make them change anything in a case? You don't want political bias to be part of the FBI, especially when that political bias can be used to gin up a case or depress another case. I'm making the point that they're existing in the world where Hillary Clinton is going to win. And in existing in that world where Hillary Clinton is going to win, would that incentivize agents to lean a particular way? I'm saying if they were living in a world of non-bias, I don't think some of these decisions would have been made. I think Clinton would have been perp-walked. I think at the very least they wouldn't have killed the case before they even investigated her. Like, come on, you have to admit with me, that's weird. For all intents and purposes, before the case was even determined to be a case, they had already made a choice. All of this drama that took place for months on end, where they were pretending as if they were looking over to come up to a decision, was drama. They had already decided against it. Did they decide against that because of overt political bias? Did they decide against it because they assume that Hillary Clinton is going to win this, and if we hit her in the knees now, we're going to get Donald Trump? I am making the point that that political bias should not be a part of the FBI's deliberation. And while it's true everyone has a bias, the question becomes, how much did that bias influence their thinking of this case? Did somebody step over the line? I have a hard time believing that Hillary Clinton wasn't guilty. And you have Strzok and Page having conversations saying he's not going to be president. We're not going to let him be president. It sounded like they were taking certain actions to get her off and to get Trump on from the standpoint of Trump and Russia. That's what I'm saying. Now, you may have people who are just useful idiots who are just having conversations because they didn't like Trump but never necessarily crossed the line. But how do you know? Like, how do you know that this seems pretty intense and these people are working directly on the case? So much so where the IG was referring them for discipline. Yeah, I think it's a problem. Let's see. Seth Rich will be alive today if not for Hillary Clinton. We don't know that. Jamal Steele says 15% of Trump supporters are racist. Well, what percentage of Democrats are racist is what I want to know. Let me say this, Siler. One party has, for whether it's political effect, whether they mean it or just purely political effect, hugged identity. Hugged it. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, hugged it. They've used it for political effect. The other party hasn't. The fact that the party hugs identity and hugs it for political effect, this idea of how many Democrats are racist is somewhat besides the point. Even if you do have some that are racist, one party is more open in this regard, and one party is far more open and inclusive from the standpoint of race. It just is. I know you don't like to hear that, but it's true. You can look at the rallies. You can look at Trump's hate rallies, and you can look at pretty much any Democratic rally. It's like a rainbow. That's actually positive. That's actually positive. So, just saying. Yeah, they hug minorities, yeah. Even if they don't like us, they hug us. Now, the problem with that is they use that to obfuscate for real issues. I'm hugging this Asian, I'm hugging this black, I'm hugging this darky, because I don't want to actually stand back and talk to them about the real economic realities that we're facing. They do it as a political gimmick. It's a political stunt. Republicans do something similar, but with whites. Both parties do it. It's their way of trying to ginning up their base. Democrats have gotten to the point where it's gotten to be strange and weird because they have this, in some cases I've heard people use white as pejorative. It's so weird. Anthony Allen. Anthony, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Bill was really raping people. Trump's about the business, and business rape the resources of this world. Don't buy everything in, being the ultimate consumer, and they don't have sales. Yes, but if you're talking about actual solutions that people might do, here's the thing. I understand you, and you're right. But you're right in the same way that somebody is saying, look, if everybody just stopped joining the military in all of the countries, we could have peace. That's true to some degree, but nobody's going to do that. People have needs. And I don't shop at Walmart. I don't like Walmart. I think Walmart is a plague on our society. I think many of these stores are plagues on our society. I think most of the shit that's in stores is a waste. I think the idea that there's somebody who's outside homeless without a place to stay, and you have all of these items in the store that nobody really wants, these plastic fucking toys. The money that it took to make those, that guy could have had a house. These buildings, these dilapidated buildings, if the government cared, the government could make those into housing. I'm saying, buying shit from Amazon where their workers are running from pillar to post. You can make an argument that that's just as bad as Walmart. I agree with you on this, but I don't know what to do about this. And actually, human beings need things. Like, our society has gone past this thing of need to this thing of excess. Because it's gone past this thing of need to the thing of excess, we've used marketing to try to advertise products to people because we've so full up of shit, whether it's food, whether it's clothing, whether it's shooting, all those things. We're full to the brim. In order for our economy to keep going, we've come up with this weird system to which we use resources as fast as we can use them because that allows somebody to buy something else and the money keeps circulating. It also allows money to go into people's pocket. Problem is, you have a finite world. And with this finite world, even though you have all the resources you need to make sure people have all the things that they need to live a decent life, it's accrued in the hands of the 1%. I don't know how you get people to stop shopping. Like, I don't know how you get them to do it. To some degree, people should minimize. I agree. But then you have this weird economic system that the moment that they minimize, people start losing their jobs. Look, our issue is the way we're arranged. Changing any one aspect of the system breaks it. But I guess I'm making a point to you that it's not so much that people shop. People have been propagandizing a way to shop. From the time they were kids to the time they were born, they've been shown advertisements. This is what you need to wear. This is how you should look. These are the fashions that are in season. This, if you don't have this, women are not going to like you. You spray this on your body and women will come flocking to you and they would be crawling at you and you would have to kick them away in order to run and get into your car. Like, this is the stuff that we're advertised with. It's amazing. You can imagine that if that's all a person knows, and if profit, and if buying stuff and access to those things are also tethered to this idea of progress and success, that these are the incentives that are built into the system. It's almost like a feedback mechanism that tells a person you're doing good because you can buy more stuff. That's not just the individual that's doing that. That's an individual that has an explicit lesson plan that is drilled that into him. There may be an aspect of him that is more accommodated to that thought. But just like if you lived in feudal Japan, you may be a samurai. That guy, that consumer, plantation worker, he doesn't know. He thinks this is freedom. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. So, I got rid of myself except for the basics like clothes. Oops, got rid of my shoes besides a pair of moccasin boots I made. Are you serious? That's hilarious. My wife and I are talking about traveling. And because we're talking about traveling, she's like, what's the least amount that you need? Now, before I met her, I actually did good with that. I wasn't buying a huge amount of stuff. It was shop few and far between. Most of the time I'm like, yeah, I don't need it. I make do. And then I married her. And it's like, want to go to Old Navy? Okay. Huh. I like those jeans. Those fit my ass amazingly well. I'll take them. Yeah, that's a perfect size, and that's the perfect length. I never knew. And I like that shirt. And let me get those pair of Chuck Taylors. And ooh, there's a different pair of Chuck Taylors. Ooh, there's another different pair. There are two-tone Chuck Taylors. It's like, your habits to some degree blur with the other person when you meet. When my wife met me, she was a vegetarian. Not anymore. Not anymore. Your habits blur. You become this, there's certain aspects of you that the other person fold in on, and vice versa. But I think we're pulling out of it, I'm being honest. And I think the traveling is going to go a long ways for that, because we are going to literally be in bare necessities. So, I own a couple of dictionaries, haven't cracked one open for ages. Thank you, interwebs. Go omnivores! Joan O'Fark. I can't afford to live on the road, Trudy. So we I took a massive pay cut to do this because I cared about this. Something I loved. She took another job where she's going to be working remotely. So she's now working remotely. I am now working remotely. My patrons have increased. My videos have started to increase. And so I've been able to essentially cobble together a life with this. As we're on the road, that for the most part balances out. Like the money that we would pay for rent and everything else, we are essentially just paying for hotels and transport. So it's like our bills don't change. We take that one amount that's enough to go and one amount that's enough to get back in an emergency. Living with my mom, we're able to save extra for those few months. So we have 2 emergency funds just in case we need to get out in a hurry. And the rest of it, we build up as we go along. So if we need to stay somewhere for 2 weeks to build up for the next check, we do that. You can't necessarily just go hopping from place to place to place, depending on where you're hopping. If it's going to be a longer hop, you're probably going to have to build up for 2 weeks for payment so you can get paid. But it may work. I think it's going to work. Fixed income paying my brother $200 a month to live with him. Still no money to save. Oh, I feel you. Darren Levy, smart Jamal. Yeah, smart, but painful. Like you said, you did the show with your cell. You can do your show on your travels, show where you are. Yeah, and I'm going to do my shows when I travel. Like I have camera and everything else is going to come with me. Cell, lighting, all of it. It's going to come with me. The show is going to be done on travels. And we're going to expand to a travel channel on top of that. So we're going to have both. So no, it'll work. I love doing this. Before I started doing this, I was working full time and doing this like for 5 hours a night. So I would finish this at like 2 in the morning, just constant, over and over and over again for like 8 months. And at the first of the year, I lost my job. I hated that job. Absolutely hated that job. I can't get across how much I hated that job. And I thought, well, I love doing this. Why not just dump that energy into this? You were doing this anyway. And the channel grew. And it started to grow in a way where I was like, suck it up. And what do you actually need to spend? And then scale down with this idea of you're changing to something new. Meaning you're changing from something that you absolutely hated to something that you absolutely love. And what are you willing to give in order to do that? Well, it takes time. So it's in my head, it's yes, it takes time. Yes, I love it. Still, I'm still not used to it yet. No, I'm not sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I hated that job. I love this. JT, will you be donating money to Democratic Party if Bernie Sanders is candidate? Oh, brutal. You brutal. That's so brutal. No, I'm not sorry about losing it. No, I hated it. This has been some of the best times of my life, literally, from the standpoint of work. I work harder, if that makes sense. But I work harder because I love it. This goes against this capitalist argument that people do things purely for cash. It's nonsense. Imagine what you would do if you got up in the morning and did what you wanted to do. What energy would you put into it? What verve, what vigor would you express in something like that when you're doing it because you want to do it, not because somebody is compelling you to do it? It's a different motivation. It's freedom to some degree. Do another debate with Adam Salva. That shit was entertaining. That shit went on way too long. I've been looking at other people's shows and how they deal with that stuff. I should have cut it off in like 5 minutes, but it's fine. Would I be donating to Bernie Sanders? Would I be donating to the Democratic Party? I will not be donating to the Democratic Party. I will be donating to Bernie Sanders. There's a difference in those things. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I don't even know if Sanders is going to... I think he's going to run. He's giving all indication that he's going to run. Yeah. Let it burn. PhD student, but I watch your channel and really love what you do, man. Good for you for having the courage to take a chance and do something new. Oh, wow. PhD student. Well, thank you. Hopefully I'm not making too much of an ass of myself when you're looking at this. What's your name? Let it burn. Let it burn. I love that. Oh, Trudy. No, I didn't say that for no reason. I didn't say that for that. Thank you, Trudy. I appreciate it. I could donate a bit to JT now and then. It's all good. Yeah, I didn't say that for that. I said it more so just as a when I say this stuff, I say it just as a explanation of what's taking place, not so much as a yeah, I didn't mean it for that. But thank you, Trudy. I appreciate it. Granted, if people want to help the show, thank you. I appreciate it. But that wasn't my intent. There was no forethought in that. It was just me talking about stuff that went on. But no, dude, PhD student. I appreciate it. Gladys Melgoza. I know that Obama is just bad as Trump, but not worse than Trump. Yeah, he's not worse than Trump. From the standpoint of putting everyone to sleep, maybe from the decent point of view, he's not worse. It depends. Again, this kind of depends on what you mean by worse. It's like, from a larger contextual view, I would say yes. From a short-term, immediate view, no. And what I mean by that is status quo. I'm sick of status quo. And not just sick of status quo. It can't keep going like this. Just from the environmental standpoint alone, take everything else off the table. We, as human beings, will always exist in something. Like, there's no situation where you are going to exist in a vacuum. Meaning you are always going to exist on something. And for right now, where we exist is planet Earth. There are certain things that you need to exist, to survive. Food, clothing, shelter, sense of fulfillment. Without those things, that human being is going to suffer. That human being is going to have difficulty. The environment itself is magnificently important to the human being having the things that human being needs. And if you're doing something that is going to adversely affect the environment, then the people will suffer. Think about the way we've organized ourselves. We're eating through the environment for cash. It's not even real. It's a mental figment. It's a legal fiction. And you have that legal fiction up in comparison to the planet, the world. I'm always amazed by this because it is profoundly irrational to cash to balance against the society itself, and then to have the majority of the society to be okay with it, to be conned into this idea that certain people should have access to all of the resources and everybody else shouldn't, as if labor is somehow less important than the plutocrats themselves in the Capitol. I mean, it's amazing. Liar. I'm developing a human transport unit that sucks up humans through a giant hose and transport them through a giant bag. We can live in a we can live in a vacuum. We can live in a vacuum. That's hilarious. We can live in a vacuum. Creating a transport. You know, when Trump said Space Force, I saw somebody say something like, Trump is trying to build a spaceship to take all the rich people away from the planet. Yeah. Kind of a Jimmy Dore theory that Trump is waking people up who thought Obama was a progressive, but Trump is far worse. But you must understand why. Like, it's not... Worse and better are not absolutes. Like, it's not a absolute perspective. There is no objective perspective at this point. Now, there's a way that things line up to reality. Yeah, you can, for the most part, impeach a perspective based on saying the way that people are experiencing it, what you're describing is not so much close to reality. But from a particular perspective, if you're looking at a perspective where you're saying Obama allows the system to persist the way the system is, and he puts a smiley face on it, then yeah. If you believe that we're going to hit a rock from the standpoint of the environment, that there's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet, and we're ticking along because Obama can sing and croon, then yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem. I mean, and I say environment alone because that's a problem. The reason that we got Trump, in some degree, Obama gave 95% of the wealth to the top 1%. That number is so startling and amazing, and Trump is going to probably beat it. But it's a Democrat, supposedly a progressive. Hope and change. Hope and spare change. 95% of the wealth to the top 1%. And you wonder why people are pissed off. You wonder why they're pissed off. All those people are not necessarily racist and sexist. I'm sorry, they're not. Part of the reason the Democrats try to code them in that is because it creates a headwind when people are being associated with something. Say for the moment you go to a video, you listen to the video, you say, okay, the video is interesting, maybe abrasive, but okay. You look at the comments and you say, okay, I'm not going to watch this channel anymore. Now, that person has literally just used what a crowd said that's completely disassociated from the video itself to make a determination on how they should behave. Crowds matter. Especially if you can put a perception in somebody's head that these people are like X. And if I am doing this, then I am also like X. It creates a societal headwind, a sociological headwind of sorts. The reality of it is, though, that yes, you may have a faction of those people that are that way, but those people always have been in the Republican Party. Not always. At least going back to the 60s. But that doesn't solve the Democrats' problem. In fact, doing that is an obfuscation. It's smoke and mirrors. It's done purely to cover themselves, as opposed to actually dealing with issues. It's like a person being black doesn't mean that the person is inherently progressive. Just saying. A person that's black and that's a billionaire is probably going to have more in common with another billionaire than it's going to have in common with somebody who's black. It's not their race. If they were black, Hispanic, Asian, whatever, the fact that they're a billionaire is going to supersede all the other stuff because how they live, the way in which they live, what they eat, what they buy, who they eat with, who they talk to, who they can call up, are fundamentally different than what it would be for somebody else who's just a regular human being. That black billionaire has more in common with somebody else in his clique. Meaning me, as an African American, have more in common with a Klansman, likely, providing he's not rich, than that billionaire. I'm trying to make the point to you that the bottom 99% has more in common than they realize. And the separations that take place are problematic to get anything done. The issue here is not an issue of race, it is an issue of class. And until people realize that, race is used as a cover and as an obfuscation. It's smoke and mirrors. There are some people that are racist. Yes. There are policies that are profoundly unfair from the standpoint of African Americans. Whether you want to talk about policing, whether you want to talk about drug policy. Yes, that's true. But when we get to the nub of it, and you're trying to figure out how do we organize society in a way that's more equitable and more fair, that particular conversation doesn't come up. The conversation that comes up is everything but that particular conversation. Democrats talk about everything but that. They would tell you about their values. They'll talk about better deal, all that stuff. But these things will be euphemistic. They won't necessarily be something that they actually fight for, and that they will use Republicans to kind of lean on as if it's a boxing match, so they can't get it done. Do you want somebody to actually represent your interests? And do you honestly believe that a party that is so tethered to cash, meaning it needs it, is going to be able to get anything done? The conversation that takes place in politics is to some degree a meta-narrative. Regardless of what Democrats say and fight with, ultimately they are going to have to go to the people who are paying them and clear whatever they want to get through. Because if they don't clear it, they're not going to get the money to run. There's a meta-narrative that goes on when Democrats offer certain policies, because those are policies that have been cleared with their donors. Why do you want a party that can only function at the behest of their donors, even when trying to get things done from the standpoint of the populace and the commons? So, yeah, that's a lot of words, but you know what I mean. I deeply dislike black people who are Republican. They are the worst. I do too. I'm biased also about that. I'm biased about that. I'm extremely biased about black Republicans. And I think most blacks, I can't say most, every African American that I've met has been. Everyone that I've met has been. It's just because it's like a betrayal to some degree. It's like all of these people are in this other party, and you know that there's a section of that party that is hateful. And you know that your people in this particular society has had a raw fucking deal going literally as lately as like the 80s, maybe even the 90s. Not to mention the jail stuff. I'm just talking about certain housing, certain jobs. The person with a black name on their resume is less likely to get hired. Like those type of things. These subconscious things that are built into people's heads because they've been in this country. And you have the black Republican like Carson, who shucks and jives for his, this kind of sycophantic behavior as if he's equaled. They took a doctor and put him in housing. I mean, come on. Well said. Oh, thank you, Wesley. What's happening, Wesley? But yeah, I am too. I'm biased against black Republicans. Don't get me wrong. I don't have this thing where they can't be who they are, but I have a thing in my head that bugs the shit out of me because I feel like it's eating your own. I just feel like it is eating your own. Like this idea of supporting Paul Ryan as he gets rid of like Social Security, Medicare, healthcare. Like they want to eat the entirety of the safety net. The bill that they put forth is $5.4 trillion cut. They gave themselves a $1.4 trillion tax cut. Fuck the social safety net. They knew they were going to go for it to pay for those things based on services. Look, we as a society, as a collective, we choose what we want to cover. Us. That's our choice. We are the people who make the choice on what we want to do. This idea that government, we're scared in this case of government, or we're in a situation where the parties themselves have cowed the people who are in them, needs to change. That needs to fundamentally change. As long as the Democratic Party can look at you and say you have nowhere else to go, that modus operandi of getting nothing done, of being completely beholden to essentially their rich plutocratic masters, then nothing will change. Nothing will change. Either you want something real or you don't. And supporting the party as the way it is not something real. I'm sorry, it's a pipe dream. Now, yes, I'm supporting Sanders because I believe Sanders is something different. I believe he's something different. Space Force 5, the search engine for intelligent life. Oh God, Trump is never going to live that down. Space Force. I wonder who told him to say that. Were they laughing and snickering in the corner where Trump was doing it? That's what I want to know. Space Force super ray gun. I know, right? Most Americans know nothing about the rest of the world. Most of you are dumbed down. Yes, that's true. I learned most of my stuff after school. Like after I got my degree, I was working in software, and I hit this point where I started to inhale historical stuff, like lectures. And it's funny, it started in history, not in politics, where I would inhale one lecture after the next. Nixon tapes. What is his name? Oh God, what is his name? I can't think of his name. Oh, Robert McNamara. That video is amazing. Hearing McNamara speak, hearing all of these guys talk behind the scenes. Clinton, the wars, World War I, II, Russo-German War. I mean, like just the gambit of all sorts of stuff. Parliament, PMQs, going all the way back to like Thatcher. Like this stuff is fascinating. Martin Luther King, James Baldwin debating Malcolm X's speeches, Martin Luther King's speeches. There's so much stuff on YouTube, and it's like I was ill, and while I was ill, I binged watch as much of it as I could binge watch, and then I started finding the threads between the politics of then and the politics of now. And it was kind of that thread, I think, that pulled me into politics. I ended up fascinated by it. Laura Glenny, when the Russian Revolution ended, I think you're saying revolution ended with the death of every member of the royal family, leaders all over the world got scared. That is when FDR offered us a New Deal. Yes! Fucking A, love my audience. I'm so glad that you know that. Like, it wasn't just that he was, this stuff was out of the kindness of their hearts. Like, the social democracies that they're having in Europe was not out of the kindness of their heart. Ultimately, they were up against Russia. Russia, in the Russian Revolution, there's a part where Lenin is in Parliament, and he says, in the Duma, and he said, the only thing is to be asked is whether or not we shoot the king. Do we put a bullet in his head? Yeah, they killed the king and took power. It was a glorious revolution. Now, that led to another revolution. And here's another tidbit. Lenin was getting money and materials from the Germans. The Germans were using Lenin like a weapon in order to create strife and to take over Russia. When Lenin, this was found out, by the way. And not only was it found out, Lenin had to flee while Trotsky was arrested. After a certain point, things had gotten so bad, however, that even though the people knew that Lenin was was working for the Germans, he eventually came back after the revolution started and essentially took over the Bolsheviks. In negotiations, they end up giving up a ton of land, including Ukraine, Crimea. It was a bunch of other states or nations that ended up just being nations unto themselves. But I think like Estonia. But the thought was Germany lost the war, and when Germany lost the war, they took their land back. But yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, but my point is, you're right. The reason why the United States and some of these other countries was two things. I think it was the war, but I also think it was the Russian influence. Russia had this idea of we're somewhat of a communist country. What we lack in these kind of freedoms, because it wasn't was like state socialism. It was under Stalin. It wasn't fully communism. I know people like to say communism, not communistic, but whatever. Well, we make up foreign social programs, meaning we take care of our society. Well, the West has to compete against us. Like, they thought that there was going to be a takeover from the standpoint of communism. It's like, where are we going to sell our capitalistic goods to if these communists take over? What are we going to sell? Now, they turned this into a world war, meaning one country after the next. They use this to justify this kind of world domination. In the same way the war on terror right now is being used in order to go in these countries in the Middle East and affect political will. Same thing was being done with the Russia thing, the Soviet Union. Yeah, it scared them. It should have scared them. Subjugating their people. But yeah, some of the latitude that came here was to some degree because they were terrified of what was going to take place, and they thought there was going to be a potential revolution here in the United States. Yes, fucking A. Glenn, that you know it. Please do a segment on emoluments. Oh, the emoluments clause. EM clause. I gotta be honest, I don't know fully a lot about that one treaty, but I'll look it up. I will look it up. Leroy Babette. Does everyone think that if Biden runs, he would lose to Trump due to progressives not going out to vote for him? For your information, I won't vote for Biden. I won't vote for Biden either. I won't vote for Biden either. If it's up to me, Biden is going to lose that one. JT, they weren't worried about what to sell. They were worried about losing what they own and controlled. Joan, yeah, but I'm making a joke when I say that who are we going to sell our stuff to? Look, the capitalistic system, they don't have any money unless they can sell their goods. I mean, ultimately, you're talking about affecting their profits. That's what I'm saying. They don't have the capacity to do business as usual. And what's wild about that, they try to make it about freedom. There's like, freedom. We're fighting for freedom. Yeah, for your freedom, for your specific individual 1% freedom. It wasn't freedom for everyone. It was just freedom for them. There's a difference in those things. There's a difference in those things. Freedom is not what they say it is. I mean, look, there are other people on the planet. We just have to get used to it. And fact is, if you're doing something that is adversely affecting me, well, I should have some say in it. We all do stuff that would affect each other, meaning we should have some say in how we interact with one another. Just right off the bat, just from the standpoint of trying to be fair in our interactions, there's a certain collective mentality that needs to come from our interactions and behavior with one another. If I have access to education, food, clothing, shelter, and a sense of fulfillment, am I free? Yes. To some degree, I am free. Does that mean that I am free from all societal constraints? No, it is not. It does not. Freedom is always going to be within the context of some level of a system. What the 1% want is to run roughshod over everyone else in that system. The communistic system, not under Stalin. Stalin was a maniac, and he was somewhat of a permutation in that system. And whether communism works or not, I guess I'm in mind of, I don't know why people fight so hard to resurrect these ideas of communism. Ultimately, I don't necessarily know if there will be any massive shifts. Any shift is going to have to be made in almost this kind of either it crashes and we organize ourselves in a different way using technology for our betterment, or there's some shift in the way we go about our affairs from the standpoint of like a minor shift in the capitalistic system, where the system itself, let's say like worker co-ops or something to that effect. If it crashes, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, they were scared that they were going to lose their ends. All the isms is the people. Yeah, I don't like this ism stuff. I just like to do shit that works. How do you provide health care to everyone in the country at the best cost? Now, how do we provide it where you don't necessarily even need a cost? Meaning, if you take money out of the process, we're stuck with the capitalistic system for the time being. If it was me, I would take one plank out of it after the next. But even under the model that we have now, asking the question, how do we provide health care to everyone in the country? That's a technical question. That's not a political question, by the way. That's a technical question. That's a question where you get people together, you look over the other countries around the globe, and you try to figure out what's the cheapest and how do you pull it off. We didn't answer that question in a technical way. That question was answered purely from an ideological standpoint. I'm saying I don't care about the ism that answers that question. I just care about the answer to the question. The isms are holding us back. It's not a good one. Single payer. Yeah, single payer. I'm okay with single payer. Medicare for all, single payer, whatever we want to call it. This is a system that needs to be fixed systemically. Agreed, Carson. Agreed. Actually, capitalism puts people in poverty by its very nature. Again, agreed. You're sucking money out of a system, giving it to one, while the other one kind of... Because think about it. I mean, from a logic standpoint, this idea of... how do you have gross inequities and capitalism? And democracy? How? How does that work? I mean, ultimately, you have a small segment of people with a huge amount of cash, and they use that cash for political clout. The moment that the rules and the laws start to contort in order to lend itself to the people with means, especially if those people with means have influence in the political system, your democracy goes bye-bye. Let's not be coy. This is not a democracy. That's not what a democracy looked like. When Seattle, Washington makes the decision that we need to fix our homeless population, so we're going to raise rates or income tax, or we're going to raise taxes on the companies that are working here, multi-million-dollar companies that are using our lights, using our police force, using our fire force, using the labor of the people that work in our society. Amazon, a company, a private business, doesn't want to put money for the homeless, but does want to put money into crushing the city. Private interests, crushing the public will of what the public wants. A bunch of plutocrats who don't want to pay their fair share, going after the homeless. So, yeah. Denmark and Netherlands are mixed economies. See, that's what I suspect. That's the tilt, I suspect. But see, even with mixed economies, is it not similar problem? Look, if it was up to me, I said I'm farther to the left than most. I would nationalize the railways, healthcare. The railways for a very specific reason. Yes, I will buy the trains from somewhere else, but yes, I would control the railways. I want the resources to be able to use for the people in the country itself. In the same way that West Virginia has coal, that coal, a lot of it, the money should have been used for West Virginia. They should have been getting a kickback and a stipend for the fact that that stuff was being used in the country. That is the poorest state in this country. Poorest. But whether it's oil, coal, lumber, I don't care what it is. That stuff belongs to all of us. And it should have been a kickback to all of us. It should not have been taken, the state should not have been able to take it and just give those resources away like that. That's fucking criminal. That takes place that way. But it does. But railroads should be, the railroads should be under state control. Drop the cost just enough for the sake of being able to run it. Look, the reason I say that is there's certain services that I don't necessarily want people to be raped over the coals. Airlines is one of them. Trains is one of them. Hospitals, is another one. Just, I would say just us as a collective. There's certain things I don't want us fucked over on. Those are some of them. Capitalism has a irrationality. It has a rationality from the standpoint of, I want to get mine. You know what I mean? It's this thing of maximize my profit even at the expense of the wider society. Well, if there's a problem with the wider society, you are also part of that wider society. It is irrational from the standpoint of a person to fuck themselves over at a larger standpoint, from larger context. And yet, in the moment, from the standpoint of maximizing your immediate profit, it makes sense. It is irrationality. Agreed. All right, I'm going to end this. This is going longer than an hour. Look, thank you guys for helping with this show. Let me make sure I haven't missed anybody. When the Russian Revolution ended with the death of every member of the royal family, the leaders of the world got scared. That's why FDR offered a New Deal. Yeah. Well, I kind of want to believe FDR also offered a New Deal because of people are suffering. That too. I mean, I think it's both. I think it's a little bit of, and you can even make an argument. It's not so much he was moved from an emotional standpoint. It was, oh my God, they're going to take me down. Or it could have even been politically advantageous. Who knows? I mean, I've up to this point, I've always taken it as he cared. But I could be wrong. As I've gotten older, I've become more cynical in regards to the way politicians behave and why they behave. So, maybe. Alright, guys. I'm going to end this. I want to thank all of you for showing up. I think I may have another one after this, so we'll see. I'll check my Twitter feed. I usually put the items that I'm looking at on my Twitter feed, so I usually go back and check it. So, I'll see you guys shortly. Thanks, everyone.